Do you like what you hear? Then you need a Devon bass. Devon bass. Better by design. Whether you're old school or whether you're new school, we discuss it all for the only one that matters. Christian Talk with Christian musicians. Greetings and salutations, my friends. Welcome to another episode of For the Only One That Matters, Christian Talk with Christian musicians. Today's guest will be Joel Davis, a good friend of mine, an old friend of mine, a minister of music out in Texas. So without further ado, let's join the interview in progress. Hey, brother.
Hey, Mr. Paige, how are you, man?
Long time no see.
Right, man. Oh, man, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too, my friend.
How's your dear family?
How's life out there in the big old state of Texas?
It's good. It's very good. It's very good. Very busy. 4 kids growing, ministry, trying to be a therapist on the side, teaching lessons still. You know how that is. And so lots going on. So much going on.
Well, cool. All right. Well, let me get this isn't live. I mean, this isn't going out there live. I'm taping this. I'm going to edit it later.
Okay. Good. You can cut out the shenanigans then.
Oh, no. Shenanigans stay. Oh, yes. Hail to the shenanigans.
You're here.
Well, folks, welcome to another episode of For the Only One That Matters. Today, I have a guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself. I'm going to let him tell us a little bit about himself. I've known him long enough to know that most of what he says will probably be true. So, okay. And what isn't true will be believable.
Yeah.
So go ahead, buddy. Tell us all about you.
Hello. I am so glad and honored to be on this podcast. So thank you so much, Paige, for thinking about me. And world, I cannot think more of Paige and Glenda Garwood. They have been I'm not going to embarrass Paige by going into all of it, but
no, please embarrass me. Gosh, it's okay. No.
Anyway, what a wonderful couple. And so I just want to publicly thank you, Paige and Glenda, for being such wonderful friends through the years. In the ministry for about 20 years, worship ministry. I come from a classically trained background as a worship minister. The seminaries aren't doing that much anymore, but
now, let's stop right there. That's curious what you just said. You said the seminaries, they're not focusing on the music side a whole bunch?
Yeah, I don't know that, like the school that I went to, Southeastern, they closed their music program. I'm not sure. I think they may have what is called a worship, an MDiv in worship leadership. And so but I'm not, the kind of musical training that I've got is, I started out back porch, just like you, Paige. I mean, actually, you have more formal early on than I had, but all back porch stuff. And then when I went to ministry school, it was like a conservatory when I was there. And so I studied Beethoven, and we analyzed Bach, and we arranged choral things, according to common practice theory laws, that kind of stuff. And so I don't know that there's a lot of that sort of training going on in the church world in the seminary so much anymore. I could be wrong about that. I think Southern still has a music program like that. It seems like it's tending toward the more commercial style worship leadership. So, but hey, that's one of those things that might not be true. So don't tear me apart, listener, for what I just said. So I do come from that background. I've been doing this for about 20 years, married, a dog, 4 kids, the whole thing. I've recently finished, a couple of years ago, finished my master's in professional counseling. So I've been doing that sort of thing on the side. Love doing that.
What kind of counseling are you doing?
Just a regular professional counseling, licensed professional counselor.
Sweet.
So working with clients, come one, come all, couples, kids, you name it,
Awesome.
whoever I can get my hands on. I love doing that. So good or bad.
That's an interesting choice of words for a counselor.
Yeah.
Whoever I get my hands on. You get in here.
Yeah.
Hey kid, you look like you have problems. Get over here.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Just saying.
Hey, there you go. That's right. That's right. I'm with you. I don't know. I don't know what else you want to hear from me about all that kind of stuff, but
Well,
there
tell
you
me
go.
about the church. Tell me about the church you're at. Where are you at?
I'm at a church called Memorial Baptist Church out here in Baytown, Texas, right outside of Houston. You can get into the heart of Houston in about 30, 40 minutes from where we're at.
Okay.
And so we've got two campuses here. One is called North Campus. I'll probably be referring to both these. It's a contemporary style. And so you're going to have City of Light, from City of Light to Maverick City, those kinds of song choices, those styles. That service is at 9:30 on Sunday mornings. And then I do another campus called Sterling Campus. And that is a blended style. Like we had our Christmas thing. We hire an orchestra for Christmas and for Easter, and a choir, solos, that kind of stuff. So
Right.
more on the blended to, yeah, that's where I'm at. Memorial.
Well, so all right. Already, and I tell my audience this all the time. I come with a set list of questions, which you've read, and I promise we might even get to all of them.
Yeah.
But the conversation always goes where the conversation takes us, where the
Mhm.
chemistry with me and my guest takes us. And you've already said a couple things that has really dinged my bell. Your background is pretty as in your training is in traditional,
Yeah.
right? Was that like hymnody,
Yes.
choral,
hmm
all those old big old famous dead guys, Bach,
Yeah.
Beethoven, things of that nature.
hmm
Um, did that prepare you for what you're doing right now?
I would have to say for the Sterling side, yes, well prepared. The North side, no, not so much. It did prepare me in ways.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to play commercial music, you go into a conservatory, yeah, you can play the music, but does it sound right? You probably know
Right.
what I mean by that.
Yep.
And so that's when you get into like, as a teacher, you understand the idea of getting into styles, like being able to play a style in a way that's convincing. That's kind of like the gold standard for musicianship. Can I play?
There's nothing more painful than watching an operatic soprano sing a Celine Dion song.
Yeah. Right.
Now, I will say the one guy who's made that cross is Botticelli,
Okay.
that blind tenor. Is that Andrew Botticelli? He's amazing. He just flips a switch and he's a pop artist. He
Wow.
flips a switch and he's sings alongside of Pavarotti.
Right.
It's just, oh my gosh, he's amazing. But
incredible.
now I guess then I'm going to be doing a series of podcasts coming up, and I might invite you back into that mix because you're sitting smack dab in the middle of it. But I've been involved in a lot of conversations recently about hymns, praise and worship, and the pluses and minuses of both. And you have the people, the extremes on either side. The hymn folks say there's no theology in these new songs, and then you have the people on the other side, the extremists on the other side, saying your geezer's time's over. Break the guitars out. Let's go.
Right.
But there's a middle ground, because I was sitting there. I had that discussion with somebody the other day. I said, all right, look at 10,000 Reasons by Matt Redman. Tell me what's wrong with this theology.
Right.
They couldn't. Take a look at, and I started going down these praise and worship songs. A song that my church has put out, I believe it. It's talking about the Trinity. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with the theology of that? Oh, well, nothing. Well, then what's wrong with that song?
Right.
So their gripe isn't the theology, it's a preference.
Hmm.
But yet they're masking it in the theology argument.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do you address that issue? I'm
Hmm.
sure in your church you have the traditionalists and the new guys.
Definitely.
How do you keep them from throwing hands?
Yeah. Well, so much of this is about the personality of the leader. Also, sometimes you just got to do what you want to do. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you got to do that. I try to we'll get into this, I'm sure, that my philosophy of worship leadership involves engaging the congregation. And so I have to hear what they have to say and appreciate what they have to say. And so if I have the time, there's two levels of this discussion. The deeper level is the one I want to get to when I'm talking to congregants. And that is, what do you mean by the word hymn? What do you mean by the word term praise and worship?
This is
How would
why
you?
we're friends, because we think exactly alike. Please
Yeah. Okay. And so I had a guy one time, he's in my choir, he's an older guy. He was saying, hey, I don't like new songs. I just like hymns, that kind of stuff. But he was kind enough to say, what's the difference between the two? And I said, well, okay, so I'm going to define to you hymn as I learned it. Psalms, hymns, spiritual songs. So,
Right.
hymn is a song that's written with biblical content that's not a psalm. And so anywhere else in the Bible that you find things about God, descriptions of God, wherever, Ephesians, okay,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you write a song about it, that's a hymn.
Okay.
I'm telling you how I define these things.
Right.
If you are like Isaac Watts and want to write songs out of the Psalms, that's a psalm. And then the spiritual song is improvised, and you find this a lot in gospel centric churches. The gospel, like
Right.
we used to call them the black church. That's a weird thing to say to me. To
Right.
say black church doesn't seem at all right. But you know what
Right.
I mean by that. And especially as
Yes.
church musicians, we have to use this kinds of terminology. So anyway, what's the difference between a praise and worship chorus and a hymn? I don't see the word praise and worship chorus in the Bible. And so I just
Right.
go with they're all hymns, unless they're a song.
My worship pastor, you would so much like him. His name is Kerry Amos. Um, I asked him the same question the other day, and he says, "It's funny you should mention that. I don't see it."
Yeah.
That was his response. He says, "I don't see it." It's
Yeah.
he says, what people who are on the hymn side tend to forget is that there's some really crappy hymns. There are some hymns, but that's the same with any genre, right?
Yeah,
There's great
that's right.
pop songs and there's lousy pop songs.
Mm-hmm.
Back when you and I were teaching together, I used to teach a music appreciation class, and I had a kid tell me he hated country music. It just flat out. And now this wasn't a rude kid. He was a very good kid, but he said, I just hate country music. I said, stand by. And I
Mm-hmm.
played the song Hurt by 9 Inch Nails. I hurt myself today.
Oh yeah.
See if I could. And I played it. I said, now listen to this. And I played Johnny Cash's version of it. It was just a guitar, a little bit of a cello, and a piano,
Mhm.
honky tonk piano, slightly out of tune, right? And after Johnny Cash got done singing, the room was quiet, like we'd gone to church. I mean, it was that.
Mm,
Oh, Johnny Cash just captured that tune. And I said,
mhm.
now what do you think? He said, I still hate country music, but I like that.
Yeah.
I said, okay. I said, then what you're saying is you hate bad country music.
Hmm.
And I'm with you. I
Yes.
hate bad country music.
Yeah.
And then I asked the kids, I says, what's the difference between those two songs? Same song, two artists. And this one girl raised her hand and said, Mr. Garwood, it's like when 9 Inch Nails did that song, you could feel the devil in the room. You just felt the evil that is addiction, because the song is about addiction, as you know.
Mm,
And he said, you could just feel the devil was in the room. But
mm,
when Johnny Cash sang it, I just wanted to cry,
mm,
because he made you realize that addiction is hopeless.
mm,
And he made you feel the hopelessness of the addict. I
mm.
said, Yeah. That's the purpose of
Mhm.
music. It
Yeah.
pulls your heart.
Yeah.
And but what I tried to I've told what Carrie tells me says there were a lot of garbage hymns that
Mhm.
didn't have good theology, that
Mhm.
were just emotional songs of the moment. He says, and there's nothing wrong with those,
Mhm.
but those will never stick around.
Right.
And so
Agreed.
so I think you and him would be on the same page there, because he just says, a good song is a good song.
Right. Absolutely.
And he says when
Totally.
people talk about hymns, they're talking about 19th century music in the church. That's what they're
Mhm.
talking about. Amazing
Mhm.
Grace. Uh,
Mhm.
like, all right, here, I'll show you. I made it a point this year. I'm going to write 19th century hymns. All right. I'm going to share a
Okay.
screen here and let you
Mhm.
take a look at this. All right. It's called My Refuge. All
Okay.
right. And you can see the lyrics. You are my refuge. You are my strength, my ever present help. All right. Of course, I can't sing. Storms may come, the winds may rise. I will trust in
Yeah.
you. The whole song, it came about as when I first got diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I
Mm.
was face to face with my mortality for the first time in my life.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, do I really trust in him? And that's what this
Mm.
song's about. Though all
Mhm.
life's comforts cease, and you I cannot see, even then my trust in you, it will my comfort be.
Mm.
Totally 19th century
Yeah.
stuff. And I
Mhm.
wrote it in a chorale style. I made it's just uh I'm finding comfort. And I don't
Mm.
know what it is about. Maybe it's just because I'm over 65 now and I like football and country music and hymns.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm finding, I'm this is my year. I'm going to write 19th century style hymns and just try to define what my theology is. So I see the purpose of those hymns that they wrote
Mhm.
back then. It,
Mm.
but like Carrie said, I think there were bad hymns too. Don't idolize that style.
Right. Yeah. And then know what you mean when you say the word, because a lot of people think it's just what's in the book, the 1991 Baptist hymnal. This represents hymns. Yeah. What about
Yes.
the Broadman? Who's
Yes.
using that anymore? Like, what about the 75 that had God of Earth and Outer Space in it, talking about astronauts and stuff like that?
I forgot about that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Or Pass It On. We sang that 1,000 times when I was in youth choir.
all
Yeah.
right. I got a story about that. I hate that song, by the way. I just do. I With every fiber of my being. I mean, I'm like, let's see here. It only takes a spark to get the fire going. Soon all those around will warm up to its glowing. And then so I was in boot camp in 1975, and I went to church in boot camp to get away from a company commander because he was the only man on this planet that I've ever truly ever been afraid of. And that church was the last place he'd be, so that's where I went. Well, they always brought in a different church in the community to hold church for their sailors. And this week it was a black full gospel choir
Mm,
from the Black Full Gospel Pentecostal Choir Church of Jesus Christ First Methodist,
yeah.
whatever. I mean, a name that was a mile and a half long. Big black women in purple robes waving hankies
Yeah.
and the tambourines with the little twirly things hanging off of them, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have never heard music like that. It was glorious. It was
Mm,
bass player, Hammond B3 organ, air sucking
mm,
preacher. I mean, it was,
mhm.
and the
Yeah.
Lord said, and the organ,
Yeah. Oh
wow.
man.
It was like, oh. So I just
Yeah.
elbowed my way down to the front like it was a mosh pit.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm almost getting whiplash because I'm watching. They're doing the shallow two-stepping thing. They're dancing. The bass player
Mm,
stumping, drummers
mm,
smashing.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, and I feel this music washing over me. And I was just
Mm,
close my eyes, and I've never felt so good in my life. And all of a sudden I realized I was crying.
mm,
And I knew that Jesus was standing right here. And if I reached out my hand, I'd put it on Jesus' shoulder. And these words went through my head: "Depart from me, you wicked, to the fire prepared for the devil and his angels." Not your typical conversion story. But those words went through my head, and I didn't know they were Bible words, but I knew it was God talking. And I was overwhelmed with terror because all of a sudden, and again, I had no idea what these words were, but these words are all bouncing in my head. I knew I was a sinful man in the presence of a sinless God, and I deserved death. I'd been measured in the scales and found wanting. And then these words go through my head, but I've loved you with an everlasting love. And then I was gloriously saved. All right. The music that was being played at that moment with the Hammond B3 organ, if you can imagine it, thumping bass, and the choir dancing and moving and grooving was Pass It On. They did like a Brooklyn Tab version of Pass It On. And it didn't change my opinion of the song. I still hate the song. But I can't argue with the results.
Well, yeah.
But if you can imagine a full gospel choir cranking it on Pass It On, to me, it just boggles the mind. But yeah, Pass It On would be a song I would say that shouldn't be a classic.
Right. And I was picking out worship sets last year sometime and thought, you know what, I'm going to peruse this 91 Baptist hymnal and let's have a look at all of these songs. There's 600 and I think there's 666. It's like, that's the devil's number, right? So
don't use that hymnal anymore. Yeah.
So I'm looking at hundreds of songs. Nobody knows. Nobody. I don't know them. I know a lot of hymns. I grew up, like I said, in a traditional worship setting, and was trained by these folks. Hundreds unknown. I mean, you probably can come out with 50 to 100 that we sing. So, I don't know why I'm saying that, but
well, you know what?
There's a lot of bad hymns.
The thought that occurs to me, maybe calling them bad hymns might be a little harsh, but I've written songs ever since I've been a believer, and the vast majority of those songs are really not meant for anybody to hear. Not because they're bad, some of them maybe, but for the most part, they were songs that came out of my whatever personally was happening between me and God. And as a musician, and this, that's how we express ourselves. And sometimes we work our way through things with our music. It's self-therapy. And when I was dealing with things, I'd write a song about it. And it's still inspired because God placed it in my heart, gave birth to it. I sing it. Maybe I'd sing it out a couple times, and then it just goes into my folder and I never see it again. Yeah. I kind of think that's what all musicians go through. These people who have all these hit records, I bet you for every hit song Taylor Swift has, there's 10 of them that are just garbage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But we think, oh, she's just a song churning machine. Well, she might be, but she only hits gold in 1 out of every 10.
Right.
And I kind of think that's what we have to keep in mind with the hymns from the old days, is that they're not bad, but they're really they're not relevant. I don't know if that's a good word. But you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, every song I've ever written under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit has been inspired by God. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a hit.
Right.
God has something to say to me, and he says it. And then once it's said, it's done. I put that song away. I'll pull it back out every now and again. But I kind of wonder if that's the deal with the old hymns, and that we tend to glorify, we tend to glorify the hymns because the handful of hymns that we really know by heart are the great ones.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that God is going to continue to do things that way.
Yeah. Right. No, I'm with you for sure. That idea that you just were talking about is completely freed me to write songs. The very idea of how many great songs does a person write? How many mediocre songs does a person write? How many really bad songs does a person write? And I mean, I go around to people that we talk about this idea with and go, how many songs can you name from U2? How many, name your favorite band. I'd say whatever, talking to a guy from the 70s or whatever. Journey. Okay. How many songs can you name?
Not all of them.
No, certainly not. How many records do those guys produce? Lots. How many songs do they put on those records?
Lots.
Lots. How many do they really write? Probably way lots. But how many can you name? I mean, maybe
Just
on,
the great ones.
yeah, exactly right. And the idea of, hey, I can write mediocre songs. Why not write them? Just write them. It's okay.
Well, that gets to the point. Also gets to the point of your question. Why do we write songs? If you're writing songs to make a buck, you are just letting yourself in for this is just me personally. You're just letting yourself in for a huge disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
You know that story of Eric Liddell, the Scottish missionary who the movie Chariots of Fire was made about. You remember that movie? Did you ever see it?
Yeah.
All right. Remember his sister, they were getting ready to go in the mission field to China, I believe, and he was running on the United Kingdom's middle distance track team, marvelous runner. And his sister could not understand why he had to run. Why are you running? Why do you spend so much time running? And his answer to her was, this is the answer that freed me up for ministry. He said, because God made me to run fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure.
Mm.
You know, Paige, why do you continue to write songs that nobody will ever hear? Because God made me a musician.
Yep.
And when I write or when I play, when I sing, I feel his pleasure. If you can keep that your focus, I'm thinking that just blows the doors off the barn, and you can do whatever in the world you want to do.
Yep. That's right. Very freeing for sure.
So now I'm curious. I like your approach to hymns. Is there contemporary praise and is there contemporary Christian music out there that you avoid?
Yeah, I do. Now, I'm not in the camp of the people who look at the writers of the songs and avoid them. And I understand their argument. Why are we going to give money to people with bad theology? I understand that.
I know
Right or
who you're
wrong,
talking about. I know
right,
who you're talking.
right, right or wrong. I don't spend much time thinking like that. I take it a song at a time because I like a lot of Mozart, but if you read the letters that he wrote to his nephews and nieces, they're pretty nasty.
He
So
was profane.
yes,
But
yeah.
yeah, I went to see the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra do his Requiem, and was it Requiem in D minor, his big one that he was working on when he died.
Mm,
And the mass has a set format, right? It has
mm,
a schedule, for lack of better words, what
mm,
songs follow what songs. He inserted he inserted a portion in there that was his own prayer and cry for repentance. And they put the English
mm,
translation up there. I mean, and it'll make you cry
mm,
when you hear the music and you read his words. And it's
mm,
something to the effect of, dear God, you promised me salvation. I'm crying out to you for salvation. There's things along that line. And it
mm,
was, he's on his deathbed, and his, I used to make fun of him because he was very profane. There's no doubt about it. He was a party animal.
mm,
But on his deathbed, he was facing his sins. And
mm,
when he wrote that Requiem in D minor, that one section, I'll have to go find it.
mm,
Uh, it'll make you cry
mm,
because you see the heart cry of a man who perhaps for the first time is realizing the serious nature of his sin.
mm.
And
Yeah.
he's calling upon God to honor God's promise to him.
Mm,
It's heart wrenching. Now, I don't
mm.
know if that means he's saved,
Right.
but I know it was a man who, for the first time, seemed to grasp the heinousness of his nature.
Mm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was, oh my gosh, yes. I don't know
Yeah.
why I went down that rabbit hole, but Mozart
Yeah.
actually became a bit more of a hero to me
Mm,
on his
mm-hmm.
deathbed. The rest of
Right.
his life, not so much.
Yeah. Right. So,
Also the thought you made mention of the fact that you don't want to reject a song just because the writer might have poor theology. He might have poor theology, but the theology of that song might be correct.
right.
Is what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. But the old preachers would say God could hit a straight lick with a crooked stick, right?
Yeah. Yeah. A broken clock is correct twice a day.
Right. And so as the songs come by, I look at the content of the song. And some songs, like you get into the group like City of Light, those guys,
Mhm.
the Gettys, Townend,
Oh,
they're dense theologically,
yes.
dense. Um, and so it's hard to find anything wrong with those guys. Now, the thing that I find wrong with those guys, if I were to find flaws, is the singability. And so you have to weed through that because you want your congregation to not only learn, which is nice, you want them to worship. You want to interact with their hearts. And so,
And
you
it
know,
has to be simple. And that's not a degrading term the way I'm using it.
yeah.
You know, this is a great pop song. What makes a great pop song popular is when it first comes out is that the audience can feel like they can predict what's coming next.
Mm,
All right. And
mm-hmm.
the song leads them in a musical direction. That's why most pop tunes use 1, 4, 5, 2, and 6, those chords.
Yeah. Yeah.
Taylor Swift uses 4 or 5 chords at the most. That's
Mm-hmm.
not because she's stupid. I talked with Ben Clark, who was her sideman for years. And he says, yes, she is very limited in her music theory knowledge. But he said, what she knows, she is an absolute stinking genius at using.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because pop music leads people melodically, like the 5 chord, one's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
2, 5, 1. You know what's coming. You're coming
Mm-hmm.
home.
Mm-hmm.
And a great pop song does that. And so congregationally, when you have to have that kind of, the song has to lead people to the conclusion musically,
Yeah. Yeah.
melodically. So I
Right.
get what you're doing there. What about the thought occurred to me? Wasn't Balaam a pagan prophet?
Mm.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm
And
pretty
then
sure. Yeah.
he was hired to curse Israel,
Yes. There you go.
and
Yeah.
he couldn't.
Mm.
So I'm thinking, if a pagan priest can be used by God to bless the nation Israel,
Yeah.
then I think the same applies to a messed up songwriter.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm thinking maybe that kind of correlates with what you're saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the people who wrote Goodness of God, I probably don't agree with their theology. There's a couple little oddities, especially that came out about that group, but that's a good song. Goodness of God is a good song, So we sing it. It's singable melodically. It works harmonically. It works memorable, like you said. It quotes the Psalms during the bridge. Your goodness, follow me, like whatever that's coming after me. It's coming after me.
Yeah.
Your goodness and mercy is coming out. Yeah, that's the song. Goodness,
That's
surely
the story of God pursuing us.
Yeah, right.
And when it comes down to their theology, I look back at when I first became a Christian. Dude, you want to talk with somebody that has some screwed up theology? I look back at what I used to believe and think, and I'm going, why didn't God just strike me dead there?
Yeah, right.
Because I was as screwed up as a soup sandwich, theologically wise. And so I look at some of these younger folks that are doing these songs. All right, I understand when you're a professional musician, Christian or secular, to a certain extent, you go where the money takes you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if you're in it for a living,
mm-hmm.
that's what you do for a living, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if I could see where as a young musician that some of these organizations might be very, very attractive because they would support them. And you knew that the minute you came out with an album, you have 150,000 people around the
Mm-hmm.
globe that are going to stream your song like that.
Yeah.
You're going to buy your album. You could go at church. They put your album up if it's one of these mega churches and there's like 8,000 people coming to church on a Sunday and 1,000 of those people are going to buy your album, your CD like that every Sunday.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get it. And I hope that someday down the road they realize that that's not the big thing. But
Right.
if you're a troubadour and you're in the business of making music, that's a hard thing to walk away from.
Sure.
And thankfully, I've never had that problem.
Right. Yep.
I guess thankfully.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And if you think about someone like the Wesley brothers, they wrote a ton of songs. And I don't agree with their theology, at their core,
and some of those songs, weren't they bar tunes?
Yeah.
That they just threw Christian lyrics at.
Right. And I know from church history, music history, that a lot of the hymn guys, the publishers of these hymnals, changed the lyrics of the Wesley brothers. Charles's lyrics. I can't tell you the song, but those guys believed in fix the theology, or maybe neutered it or ironed it out a little bit so that it's more acceptable. Yeah.
Well, where they were at, they believed that you could lose your salvation.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. So of course their hymns would reflect that urgency and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But how many of the Wesleyan hymns are still in circulation today?
Right.
To me, it's like, I believe God weeds things out.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe time weeds things out.
Yeah.
And there's one lady, I won't mention her name. I used to babysit her kids. She is a well-known artist in the Christian, and she's writing contemporary hymns. All right. Her songs are deeply researched theologically wise. I mean, her songs, they're just pure gold, but they're not memorable. That she is communicating sound theology, great theology, and you listen to her music and you're just ushered into the presence of God. It's glorious stuff. But I had a friend of mine who was at a women's conference, and this lady was performing, and so he says, well, you probably heard this song before, but no, sing along if you feel you want to. But nobody could sing along because the one element her songs appear to be missing is the hook.
Yeah.
The pop element, I guess we could call it.
Right. Yeah.
And but there's people out there that are doing good stuff. Gaithers, they understood the formula.
Yeah.
And you take a look at some of the songs they wrote. Oh my word, theology all over it. Hooky, yeah. Right. Andre Crouch, look at the stuff he did.
Yep.
Oh my word. So there's so I'm trying to quell. One of the things I want these interviews to do is kind of put information out there to get people thinking on both sides of the fence. Hymn guys, there's praise and worship music. There's contemporary artists out there that are writing good, sound theological stuff. Yeah. And newbies, give some props to the old guys, because those old hymns, we're standing on their shoulders.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We can do what we do in the church because they did what they did. And these hymns, that was a contemporary praise and worship of their day. The latest Wesley Brother hymn was a big deal.
Yep. Right.
And
that's right.
we have to, I think we have to practice some grace.
Yeah, absolutely.
On both sides of this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, that's the word, grace. Yes. Okay.
All right. We've hammered that post about as far into the hole as we need to. When is worship music not worship music?
I think the easiest answer.
Your theology of music.
Yeah, I think the easiest answer is content. Who are we talking about here? Are you talking about the same God, same Jesus? People use Jesus and God all over the place, so that's probably the easiest first answer. So I go for theologically correct stuff. Now it could be light, like you think about that song Jireh by Maverick City. Now I know that people using like Jehovah Jireh, some theologians would, that's probably kindergarten level using those kinds of words, but I understand what they mean by the Lord provides, right? And so it's pretty light theologically. It's a nice tune.
But is it theologically wrong?
It is not wrong.
See, there you go.
So there you go. It is. So we will sing Gyra. Now, is it that easy to sing? No. It comes from that gospel background. You got to know it to do it, kind of thing. So,
Right.
but good song.
Can you think of a song that's made its way into the modern church repertoire, which would not be a good worship song?
This is probably an easy one to pick on, but the song "Oceans." I think it's a beautiful
Yes.
song. I love the
Yes.
sentiment of the song. It's obviously very memorable. It's a well-written song as far as music goes. Poetically, it's a beautiful song. Does it say Jesus ever? What are we singing about here? And so I always avoid the songs that could double as a love song. I was a guy back in the early 2000s.
You just landed on it. Yes.
Yeah. What's his name? He said, your love is extravagant, your friendship intimate. Find out moving to the rhythm of your grace. The word grace is in there. Your fragrance is intoxicating in our secret place. I don't know if that's a love song or not. Like, I can't tell. I mean, the word grace is in there, but so those kinds of songs.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, this is probably written inspired for this person who wrote it, and it's beautiful and it works for them.
And it was a love song between them and God.
Yep. Right. Yeah.
And it expressed but it doesn't mean that has to be in our repertoire of church music.
Right. And so we could do that with the hymns too, like the Old Rugged Cross, for instance. Like, that's one that we're singing to or about the cross. And I think I understand what the writer was getting at with it.
But it elevates the cross.
Yes. Yep. There's not much about Jesus, if anything, about Jesus in that hymn.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. Oh, how I love that old cross. Ooh.
Yeah. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross.
I do not cherish the old rugged cross. But yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh, that's probably the premier example of a hymn that has made its way into our hearts that maybe we should just take a step back and look at it a little closer.
Yeah, because you find it hard to step back and look at it, especially guys like us who grew up as children. Maybe, I don't know what your childhood was like, but I grew up singing that song. It was the invitation,
Nazarene
every
church,
other week.
When I was a kid, up until I was about 10 or 11, I went to the Nazarene church, and songs like that was the bread and butter of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And, and the thing is, and you and I know this, music can be used to tug the heartstrings. Dude, look what Elvis knew the secret. The Beatles knew the secret. All these great artists knew the secret that music can make an audience do whatever you want them to do.
Yeah. It's an emotional language.
And when you get a really sweet organist playing that on the Old Rugged Cross, it's like you almost forget the words, because honestly, it's a well-written song.
Yeah.
It's musically, it takes you home. And it's like when Glenda was taking my son to school, to a school function, and he says, "Oh, wait, there's a song on the radio." And he hits and there's a song that he really, really liked in the radio. And about halfway through it, the singer drops this huge F-bomb. I mean, it wasn't hidden. It was like, blah. She hit the radio and says, "Did you just hear that?" He said, "Hear what? Weren't the drums cool?" Because he's a drummer, right?
Yeah.
And he was listening to drums. And she said, "They just dropped the F-bomb." He said, "No, really?" And he'd been listening to the song for a long. He never heard the F-bomb because he was so focused on the element that really captivated him. And I'm thinking songs like The Old Rugged Cross, it's a well-written song. The music takes you home. And you could almost, How I Love That Old Dog, and all the fleas that it had, and the way it would puke on the floor. You could sing whatever words you wanted, and you go, "Oh,
yeah,
thank you, Jesus."
Right.
I'm sure I'm going to get flamed for that.
Yeah. Right.
I think I've just lost a huge share of my audience before we ever started.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. So, hired guns or in-house musicians? That's another
Okay, that's a
discussion I've been
great
part
one.
of.
Oh man, great
How do you deal with that?
conversation. Right. So I've got both of those I'm working with now. Both. I've got my Sterling campus. I've got the pianist and the organist, which we have an incredible pipe organ here, who
Oh,
are hired to play. And I honestly don't know how we could do it without them. The kind of music that we do, and like when we do traditional stuff, if we're doing Holy, 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 I want to do it like they wrote it. I want to do it like that. I don't want to make it
with the
added the
big
dot.
majestic pipe organ
Yeah,
sound.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
did she have the foot pedals, everything, the whole
Oh,
thing?
yeah. Oh, yeah. It's massive.
I get
Yeah.
goosebumps thinking about it.
88 ranks. It's an incredible organ. But I want to do it the way they wrote it. I don't care about adding the dotted 8 with the 16 tied to the 8 that has, dun dun dun. I'm not adding that to Holy Holy Holy. I want it straight. Crown him with many crowns, man. We want to do that the way they do it. Joy, ode to joy.
You're taking
Or
me
the
right
hymn
to
to
the
joy.
throne of God with those
Yeah,
hymns right there.
yeah. I
Oh
want that
gosh.
organ to kick in, and I want it to be a little too loud. And so here and there you get a complaint about how loud the organ is. I'm like, good. Paula, turn it up. Push that pedal somewhere.
There's something so majestic about that sound.
Yeah.
I've had my two most memorable worship experiences. One was in a Lutheran church and one was in a Catholic church. Now, my background's Pentecostal charismatic, and now, of course, I'm Reformed in a Baptist church. I'm just a mutt. But I was in the Lutheran church, and my mother-in-law was playing organ, and they had one of it's a small church, but they had a big size organ in it, and she's playing it. And the liturgy of the day was, "The just shall be saved through faith." I think the scripture that changed Martin Luther's life. I just got done reading the biography of Martin Luther, and so that was still fresh in my brain. And we started going through the liturgy, singing the song. I just started weeping because I was overwhelmed with the thought that everything you and I enjoy as Christian believers today was predicated on that single moment in time when a Catholic monk read the words for the first time, "the just." Oh, it was just amazing. And the other time I went to see a Catholic church because a friend of mine was playing bass in the worship band. He wanted me to come watch him play. So I said, never been to a Catholic church, kind of popcorny. You're up and down a lot. And, but they had a bishop that was visiting. And so they had a procession as they're coming in. And, you had the little guys in front with holding the candles and the flags. And then you had a priest with the censer of smoke, and they all had their big pointy hats and their finery and their incredible clothes, and a pipe organ. Oh, good Lord, that pipe organ. And again, I was just overwhelmed with the majesty of it.
Yeah.
Thinking, how much more honor should be given to the God of the universe. And I wasn't thinking that we were worshiping these people that were coming in. I knew that was not the case, and that was not their desire. But it was still a picture of the pomp and circumstance that is due to the God of the universe.
Yeah.
If there's anybody on this planet that's due pomp and circumstance, it's Jehovah, it's Yahweh, it's God. And so I was overwhelmed to the point of just being almost unable to speak.
Wow.
And in both those cases, baby, it was that organ. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And so as far as musicianship, you need high-level musicianship for a pipe organ. They got to be able to play. Now, where are the new players is what I need to know, because my lady here is nearing her retirement age. She's actually retired from a local school here, university. But so it just requires high-level stuff, I don't know. We can talk about the future of the pipe organ. That's a different topic. And then my pianist, she is classically trained, and she fits right in perfectly. She can pull up and do a pas balash. She's reading it off the page. We hire the orchestra. She has no problems keeping up with these guys. No problems at all. Neither, so they're paid. My drummer at my North campus is paid. He's a country drummer. He travels with a country band. He manages to get there on Sunday morning by a miracle. Um, we pay him because he's a good drummer and we want him to stay around. Other than that, everybody else are homegrowns. Everybody. So the value of a paid musician is they're going to nail it. You don't have to worry too much about them. Usually, I haven't.
So that's expected. If you're paying a musician,
yeah,
they should be able to walk in and do it.
No problem. There shouldn't be a question of can you play it.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to pay any attention to them. You know that they're just going to do it.
They're just going to do it. And every time I've worked with a church plant where it's wherever, you pay the guys, they walk in with their gear, they nail the songs. It sounds like the record. And that's the value of it. You don't have to worry about it. Now, I've only worked with 3 paid musicians besides the orchestra. I'm talking about regular. Mm-hmm. Everybody else in 20 years are people who are back porch folks, homegrowns. I had to teach them how to play the bass. I don't know how many bass players I've had. I'm not a bass player. How many bass players I've had to teach how to play the bass because we needed a bass player. Mm-hmm. Every one of them. My daughter plays the bass, and I encouraged her to play the bass so that we could have a bass player, and she's great.
Does she play for you?
Yeah, she plays both campuses.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, and you need to continue to encourage her in that. Girl bass players, dude.
Yeah.
We're talking money making capability here,
right?
Because if she's got good chops and she can play, and if she can play in a church environment, she can play in any pop environment.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me the other day, said, "What's the hardest gig you ever had?" So that's easy, church. I said, what? Just pop music, Mr. Garwood? I said, yeah, but the song's different every week. The band is different every week.
Yes.
I don't get the opportunity to play with the same drummer. You don't know who's playing with, you have to walk in, and many times you'll get there, and a lot of the singers, God love them, they're not pros. Most aren't, right? And so they're very limited in what they can do. So if another singer has to come in because Susan got sick, but Amy can't do it in B flat, she has to do it in E. You have like that much time to be able to do it in E.
Yes, right.
And that makes it very difficult.
Yep, absolutely. The best musicians come out of church, in my opinion. The best musicians, because you have to be good. Like that transposing thing. Your first question was, what do you need to be able to do? Modern transpose, Nashville number system. Teach your people how to do it, so that when your singer comes in and she can't hit that higher one, whatever it is, she's a little sick, whatever. You can change key, or you pick a key for your set, and you picked it for a guy, and you got to go a perfect fourth so that your girl singer can sing it. You better be able to do it immediately.
I have a young guitar player. Her name's Lydia. I had her my last lesson with her just before the Christmas break, and I've taught her since she was 10, and she's 19 now. So I had her for 9 years, right? And she is a pro level player now. She smokes me. I can't hang with her, chops wise. And one day, she'd been playing rhythm guitar with the worship band. She made it on the main stage, and the worship pastor's talking to somebody else about something. And in the background, he hears this noodling. He turns around, and Lydia's just got her eyes closed, or she's looking over here like this, and she's just playing something. And all of a sudden, he realizes it's a lead guitar part from the Bohemian Rhapsody. And he says, "Is that the Bohemian Rhapsody?" She says, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry." He said, "Oh no, don't be sorry."
Right.
He said, "But I learned it in the key of blah blah blah." She says, "Oh," and she just shifted and played.
Oh wow, yeah.
I'm going, oh, that's my girl.
Wow.
That's my girl.
That's high level.
But yeah, so she is a prototype for the contemporary musician in church. She knows numbers. Now, there's a lot about music theory she doesn't know. She has some learning disabilities, and she and I are both dyslexic, so sometimes it gets really funny when I'm trying to explain something on the whiteboard to her,
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah.
write it backwards, or she'll read it backwards. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fun time. But
Yeah.
she can exist in any world.
Yes.
She plays in orchestra pits in the
Mm-hmm.
area.
Mm-hmm.
She plays Broadway tunes. She can, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's a prototypical uh,
Mm-hmm.
contemporary guitar player, and I am so stinking proud of her. So I
Yeah.
like that number system.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's necessary for them to be able to read standard notation? I mean, guitar players, of course, is what I'm thinking about. Other
Yeah.
instruments, yeah, they have to. But what about guitar
Yeah.
players?
Yeah. Needed? No, because I don't have anybody who can do that.
So
Would I
therefore, you don't
love
need
it?
it.
Right. Right. Now, a lead sheet, man. I, every musician should be growing. You know, you want them to be growing, and so grow to lead sheets, man. Wonderful. Grow to do numbers, absolutely. I don't have many who can do it. I'm in a situation with some of my guys who are like, oh, we're gonna do this in the key of B flat, and they're like, what do I put my capo, and can I have a chord chart that has it's in the key of G? Okay, that's kind of where I'm at with some of my guys. Of
Right.
course, piano players, keyboard players can't do that. They don't have that luxury.
I
So
sometimes I'll blow. Some of my students will be in church and they're watching me play, and they'll see a song and they'll just see me in the middle of a song. I'll just move my capo to a
mm,
place in the neck and play it in a different key. And said, "Why'd
mhm.
you do that?" I said, "Well, the other guitar player's playing it in G,
Yeah,
so why should I do what he does? I'm just going to move it up 5 frets and pretend I'm in D." They said, "How do
yep.
you know how to do that?" I said,
Mm.
"Whoa, whoa, whoa! It's magic, you
Which that's
know."
gold. Every one of my students that I think are going to play in a church, I'm like, we got to learn how to work a capo, and you've got to be able to transpose those shapes in your head.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that every guitar chord has a set of licks that revolve around it. Like if I'm playing something in D, well then you got this. You got
Yeah.
that. Well, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
playing something in the C, G, of course, you got all
Mm-hmm.
these licks that just fall around the shape.
Yeah.
So if I see the guitar player's doing something in G and he's playing the regular G, I'm going to capo 5, play it in D, because there's D licks
Mm.
that is going to sound really cool with what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to get my guitar players to do. I said, if you're playing in a band with another guitar player, don't do what he does. He's doing it. You got to
Mm-hmm.
find some way. If he's a worship leader, then he leads. See what he's doing. You do something that complements and supports it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so I'm moving my capo around in the middle of a song sometimes just
Yeah.
because I see what the other guys are doing, and why should I do what they're doing?
Right. Yep. And there's nothing better, and this, Paige. You've had this dopamine rush many times in your life of when you show that to a student and then you begin to play and you say, now you play with your capoed position and I'll play down in first position. And when that light bulb goes off, it's just like, okay, I can go on living. Like this is just too
Yes,
good. It's a drug.
it is a drug. It's I came to this conclusion with this. I'll see, get your input on this, and then we have to shut it down because we've been at this an hour. Um, Dude, we're just gonna have to do this again because there's just too much to talk about.
I'm telling you, man, there's no bottom.
I used to think that when I got saved, that moment I told you about with the Black Gospel Choir, Jesus told me, he says, "I have a ministry for you," and so I assumed I was going to be what you are, a minister of music, and so I pursued that for several years, or maybe even a pastor, whatever. And I chased after that. And God kept slamming the door shut, slamming the door shut, slamming the door shut. I'm going, but God, why did you gift me with music? And my spiritual gifts are teaching, administration, and prophecy. And I'm thinking, that's like that's gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, those aren't pastoral gifts. Just saying, necessarily.
Yeah.
Because I lack one very important spiritual attribute, and that's mercy. When I took the spiritual gifts test, I scored off the charts, prophecy, teaching, administration, but mercy was like 2%. So I could never do what you do because whiny adults throw me around the corner. They just throw
Yeah.
me around the bend.
Mm.
And so I learned that lesson. Good, I got that.
Mhm.
And but I'm thinking, God, why music? I mean, why do you want me composing music? And I'm composing hymns, and I'm working my way composing a mass, and I'm doing all this stuff. So why'd you give me music if nobody wants to hear what I'm writing?
Mm.
When I went to get my grad degree, my professor said, he said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to compose some 17th century Renaissance era choral music. He said, nobody writes that anyway anymore, right? I went, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
60 years old at the time, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
it's not like I'm in this for like this is going to be my vocation. My
Yeah.
vocation's done. This is just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But I had this question in the back of my head: why did God gift me with music if I'm not writing or doing anything that anybody wants to listen to?
Mm.
And that's a serious question, because musicians, we're troubadours. We exist for
Mm.
an audience, right?
Mm.
If there's nobody to listen, why play?
Mm.
But then God showed me, he says, there is an audience. I'm your audience.
Mm.
And that's why I used to say all the time, I was going to call this podcast For an Audience of One, but then I found out there's like 800,000 people out there with a podcast called For an Audience of One. So I had to
Yeah.
change the title for the only one that matters. That's the only
Yeah.
one. That's the only one of these out there.
Yeah.
But I used to think God gave me music so that I could either serve the body of Christ with it or perform for audiences, all that kind of stuff. Couldn't be further. God gave me music because he loves me, period.
Mm.
That's it.
Mm.
That's the
Mm.
only reason. God made Eric Liddell fast. Why?
Mm.
Because he loved Eric Liddell.
Mm.
And that was an avenue for Eric Liddell to feel the presence of God in his life like no other activity.
Yeah.
Paige, Joel, why are you a musician? Paige, why are you a
Mm.
musician? It's not so you can be a minister of music. That's a
Mm.
byproduct.
Mm.
He put music in your life because he loves you. And he
Mm.
knows that when you play, there's a special connection between you and God that you don't get anywhere else.
Mm. Mhm.
And it's our love language to God.
Yeah. Mm.
I love nothing more than taking a scripture and just freewheel singing it back to
Mm.
God.
Mhm.
There's and less than 10%. This is, of course, a statistic that can't be proven. So therefore,
Yeah.
it must be true.
Yeah. Right.
But I believe that there's less than 10% in the world of people that we're part of the 10% that do what 90% of the world wish they could.
Mm.
We can pick up an instrument and make music happen.
Mm. Mhm.
That's a gift. That this is
Yeah.
not something that everybody has. If it was, everybody would be doing it.
Right.
It's a gift straight
Mm.
from the throne of God.
Mm.
And why is there
Mhm.
music in our life? Because he loves us. And he knows that when Joel plays and when Paige plays, it's good.
Mm.
God likes it.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
yeah, my son, and you're going to get this as your kids get older and they turn into adults. Your kids are going to drop truth bombs on you that are just going to absolutely turn your world upside down.
Mm.
And my son and I were talking about this. He produces records, or well, whatever they're called nowadays. But he's a producer, and he's a streamer producer. Yeah, there you go. But he and I were talking, and I'd had an opportunity to get signed to a label years ago, and of course it fell through. And I was talking to my son about it, complaining a bit about it. And he says, "Dad, why are you chasing after something like that?" So I mean, it was a great opportunity, but it's gone. Why are you worrying about it? So what do you mean? He said, 10 years after you're dead, Dad, nobody will ever know you lived.
Mm.
So why are you chasing after something that's going to die when you do?
Mm.
And he said, why not take that energy and pursue God?
Mm.
Doesn't mean you don't do music. Do music. But if you pursue God, then whatever comes to the music is the frosting on the cake. The cake is God.
Yeah.
Chase after God. Because
Mhm.
would you rather stand in front of God and have him go, well done, good and faithful servant, while the world is going, Paige who? Because they
Yeah.
don't know who I am. Or
Mhm.
would you rather die with the world extolling your praises and stand in front of the God of the universe, have him go, Paige who? I'm sorry,
Mm.
I never knew you. We know
Oof.
what the words are next.
Yeah.
Depart from me, you wicked, to the fire prepared for
Yeah.
the devil and his angels.
Uh,
And so that released me from the
mm,
curse that every musician has, where we
mm,
get depressed if there's no audience.
yeah.
I have an audience of one.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you and I, we work for the only one that matters.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So who cares
Yeah.
what the people think?
Right. That
If
reminds me of that. A guy told me once that those fish that live way down the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, way down there, that are all weird looking with little lights hanging off their heads, and
Yep, the little blobby things that hang out like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Big
And
teeth.
a guy was telling me that just forever, nobody knew those fish were down there. They didn't have a clue those fish were down there. The human race went on and on and on with no idea about that. Why did God make those fish then? And he said he made them for himself. That's it, just for himself. That reminds me of what you were just saying.
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful words.
Well, my friend, gosh, this is like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. Some editing
Dude, this is
probably
awesome.
needed. Yeah.
This is awesome. We're going to have to do this again. Thank you so much. I think we made it through all our questions.
I
Yep.
think so. Mm-hmm.
Skills musician needs. When's worship music, not worship music? Bad hymns, of course there are. Hired guns and house musicians. There we go. We're done. We did it, man. It was good. It's good to see you again after all these
Hey,
years.
man, so
been?
good.
How long has it been?
I left, let me think, in '09 is when I left
To Florida.
your area to Florida. Yeah. And so I don't think I've seen you since then.
Nope, you have not. So that makes it 2009 to 2023, 14 stinking years.
Too long.
Yeah.
Way too long. Man.
It's only that far on the map, dude.
Yeah. Right.
Well, God love you, my friend. Say hello to your wife and all your kiddos for me. And
Hey.
we'll do this again.
I'd be honored, man. Thank you so much, Paige.
You know, and if you get like a hot button topic that you just call me up and we'll do
Okay.
we'll chat about that, and we'll roast whoever needs roasting, and we'll praise whoever needs praising, or you'll just vent and look stupid with me. I'm good with that.
Okay. Sounds like fun.
Be good, brother.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Great conversation with my buddy Joel. I miss him. Well, tune in next week for another conversation with another Christian artist for the only one that matters. Have a great week, y'all. Bye-bye.